California. Mr. Sherman for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I want to commend you and Secretary Cohen for the effective and hard work to enforce existing sanctions laws, particularly your new announcement today. Secretary Kerry testified before the Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday that we were going to move forward and enforce, and you've proved him right. The chair made a opening statement focusing on bailouts. We've worked hard together, the chair and I and many others, to prevent statutes from providing pre-existing bailout authority. But I'd point out that we didn't have pre-existing bailout authority in 2008. That's why we changed the statute. We adopted TARP. He and I opposed that at the time, but I hope he'll join me in co-sponsoring the bill to say that too big to fail is too big to exist. Because I'll tell you now, if Goldman Sachs is going under, you and I may be working against a bailout. Who knows? Maybe we won't be, but in any case, I don't think we're going to have a different result. Too big to fail is too big to exist. And I know Terry, along with the other regulators, has the authority under Dodd-Frank to break up the too big to fail, but I'm not sure he's going to do it until you and I pass a law requiring it. Ms. Maloney made an excellent opening statement focusing on the need for a stable housing finance system. I would add that the higher conforming loan limit that we have in her city and mine and 10 other high-cost areas actually makes money for Fannie and Freddie and thus for the federal government, and we would increase the national debt if we cut that back. Mr. Campbell focused on the $63 billion change of status at the IMF. He pointed out a number of things Congress would want to see on any bill authorizing that. I'll add one more, speaking only for myself, and that is there should be a requirement that the IMF, prior to us dealing with that $63 billion, suspend Iran, and that Iran be ineligible for any transactions with the IMF until such time as by an 80% majority the IMF board determined that they had indeed abandoned their nuclear weapons program. Mr. Green pointed out the focus on the unfairness in tax rates. Even if you believe, and I will point out the capital gains rate is in effect 23.8%, not quite as bad as 15%, but still less than ordinary working people are paying. And even if you believe that we should have a lower rate for profits earned on capital risked, the hedge fund managers are able to take their earned income and treat it as capital gain unless they make it based in the Cayman Islands, et cetera, and it's a 0% rate. Speaking of international taxation, Mr. Secretary, last time you were here in May, in my question I focused on the California system of apportionment for international taxation, known as the California system, and you promised that you would look at it. I won't put you on the spot here and ask for a full discussion, but I wonder if you can commit that we'll talk about that to cut the Gordian knot and eliminate the transaction-by-transaction approach, and instead say that if a company is 50% based in the United States, we ought to tax 50% of its worldwide income. So can I count on you for further discussions of that?
Happy to continue the conversation.
And then I would also add, and this is a smaller fix, that we ought to disallow any deduction for payment for the use of intellectual property if that intellectual property was developed in a high-cost, in a high-tax country like the United States, but has now been transferred to a low-cost country such as the Cayman Islands. Your department and you personally issue a report on currency manipulation. The National Association of Manufacturers says the renminbi is undervalued by almost 40%. And frankly, if we were able to prevent that undervaluation, you'd be here testifying about the labor shortage in the United States. Why have you not reported to us that China is indeed manipulating its currency?
Congressman, I've addressed the issue of exchange rates a number of times. I believe we've pushed very hard on China to move towards a market exchange rate. They've appreciated substantially. And we're
Tariffs
gonna
would push
continue-
them a lot harder.
We're going to continue to push them.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The